There we go. So thank you everyone for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be in the world. Happy Thursday. We will begin now. I'm just going to make a couple of announcements and then I'm going to turn things over to our presenter, Nir Greenberg, our Senior Director of Field Engineering. My name is Jason Silverman. I'm not going to be doing the main presentation, but I will be just making a couple of announcements. One is that today's webinar is being recorded. And we will send you a copy of the recording in your email inbox tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And then secondly, that we do encourage you to ask questions. These webinars are always better when we get feedback and also questions from you. The best way to ask questions is in the Q&A tab on the webinar control panel. I'll keep an eye on it. Throughout the webinar, feel free to ask. We won't announce who you are or anything like that. And otherwise, hope you find this webinar valuable. And Nir, over to you.
Thank you, Jason. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Awesome, awesome. So we have a good session today. So I hope that you get a lot of information. And while you want to see my pretty face, I will turn it off so you can focus only on the presentation, and then I'll come back at the end of the webinar itself. So, what are we going to do today? So we are going to mainly focus on challenges that we as employees, as organizations, are facing today. How those actions that we do on a regular basis increase our attack surface in the organization. And then a few tips and tricks on how to mitigate those. So I'll walk you through that throughout the slide, and Jason will track the Q&A area. And in case you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. All right, so a quick agenda. We'll walk through the regular workday in organizations, and those actions that we do on a regular basis. We want to understand how they fuel attackers and how it allowed them to move toward your crown jewels in the organization. We'll go through two interesting use cases that happened at two of our clients. One was during an ongoing attack, and the other one is some actions that we did preemptively before any attack happened. So two very interesting use cases. Then we'll talk a little bit about the concept of starving attackers and also the mindset of assuming breach. Then we'll wrap up with a summary and some actions, and also obviously if you have any additional comments, feel free to do that. So without further ado, I do want you guys to meet our team members that keep your organization running. Probably in some cases, it's actually you guys during COVID-19 era, but hopefully soon enough post that difficult time. So this is Kristen. Now she's working as the IT administrator in a 5,000 employees organization. Now she's dealing with many calls per day. She's a very loyal employee, and you know she's a great person, and everyone loves her in the organization. And we have also Ben, and we have Didi. Ben is our IT security expert who basically does it all. He's like the go-to person in the organization. And Didi, she is the team leader of these two guys, Kristen and Ben, and everyone in the company obviously love them, and they are great people. They allow everyone to work. I mean, people are working from home, people are working from the office, really day and night. They are doing everything, making sure that everyone can do their jobs properly wherever they are, basically. Recently, they also got a lot of recognitions from the management, from their peers. There was a nice event in the SKO where they got the award for the best supporting team to the sales organization, even because they were allowing them to really grow the business. Diane, she's the CISO. And obviously she's very happy because recently she was also able to report the CEO and to the board that they are in really good shape in terms of security. People can do their jobs, and you know, they can work from remote without any risk, and this is obviously a great achievement from her. Um, and then during the last board, she also she also shared with the board, and obviously we're very happy about all of those actions that she and her team done in order to deal with the new threats that they have out there. Part of the things that she updated the board and the CEO was about implementing new security solutions to deal with all sorts of threats and challenges. And they are now able to deal with sophisticated attackers. One of the key things that they have done was implementing or establishing the new SOC, so the Security Operations Center, that can respond to incident 24/7 with the best people and processes. So that sounds really promising, at least from Diane's perspective, and also from the board's perspective. Now, not all is great, as we all know, and a few weeks ago, Ryan, he's the SOC analyst, he saw like a strange behavior in the environment. Some of their tools, the security tools that they purchased, started reporting some communication issues. Some of them didn't report back to the SIM. Things didn't work as he expected them to work, and that was odd. But he was able to fix those issues by either a reboot or some troubleshooting. Then he just closed the case as low severity, and then kept on going with his life. And then one day, after some time, Diane was working from home. She came back to the office, and then she obviously, from a reaction, you can understand that something bad has happened, and that was actually a ransomware. So what she did, she actually gave a call to Ben and Didi, because now she needs to report to the CEO and the board that all of their investment didn't really help in that case. Now, from Ben's perspective, he was actually telling Diane that, look, backing up your machine is pretty quick, but the problem that we are facing right now is way worse. What happened over there is that their main database that hosts all of their clients' data was breached. The data was leaked and infected by ransomware, and so is their backup systems. So they cannot recover that data. So they are in a situation that either they need to pay the ransom, we'll talk about it in a second, or they need to do some other actions that will involve additional resources and so on. From the attacker perspective, Diane was interested to know who is that attacker. And Ben was not able to tell her. I mean, we don't know who is the attacker, but they are pretty sophisticated. I mean, taking down the backup systems and then taking out the main database, the main host that stores all the customer data, you need to be a pretty sophisticated attacker. Now, Ben told her that they did get the ransomware request this morning, and they need to pay until tomorrow, 9 a.m., and unless they will start releasing meaningful data. Along that ransomware message, the attacker also shared some details that proved that it was in fact their client's data. Yeah, so that's a very painful situation. Now, there are many ways to deal with situations like this from that point on, like incident response companies, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to focus more on what actually created that situation. How did the attacker was able to even get to their database and really try to understand like backwards. I mean, from the database itself back to what led to that bad attack, I would say. So while Kristen, Ben, and Didi made everyone happy, they also created pathways for attackers to move inside the network. Now, when that happened, the attacker was able to execute their malicious plan. Now, there is little we can do in these situations, and because these pathways happen only because we, the employees, we need to work and we need to help other people. We need to either connect to someone via RDP, we need to use our credentials to perform all sorts of actions. And eventually we are forgetting about leaving those credentials and connections behind, which basically fuels the attackers afterwards. Another reason is that we work according to some guidelines. I mean, we have all sorts of protection or all sorts of security solutions that in some cases prevent us from doing our jobs. And in a lot of cases, we bend the rules a little bit. And we just want to perform our jobs because either we want to get our bonus in the end of the year for closing as many cases as possible, or because we just want to help people because we are good people and we want to help them. And then we all hope that nothing bad will happen because we don't even think about it when we do those things. Now, by the way, if you remember, I told you to try and from the SOC saw something strange a few slides before, and this something was the attacker actually disabling some of their agent-based solutions. So they wouldn't identify anomalies while the attacker was moving laterally, and then he was basically able to go underneath the surface until they reached to their crown jewel. In this case, it was the customer database. So what can we still do? Now, the penetration to an organization is inevitable. Either it is phishing, supply chain attack, insider threat, and that can be intentionally or unintentionally. Now, we all need to assume breach and then take those this proactive approach against these malicious actors. Now, let's double click on this specific attack and understand what can we do to reduce the chances of attackers moving around the network under the radar. Now, let's take Ben for a second. So Ben connected to the client server for maintenance. He had to come to work and then kept his credentials inside an application he was using. Now, some of the credentials were in the browser. Some of them were doing remote connections to the database itself. Now, he saved those credentials also in the vault because he wanted to save some time because he was working non-stop on the customer database, and he didn't want to do login over and over again. Now, 3 days before that, Christine, the IT administrator, asked her peer for some help over Slack. Now, Ben was very happy to assist her, so he connected to her machine with his credentials because he needed some more permissions. And he also connected to a few other systems over there and brought some tools, ran some commands, and then he was able to fix Kristen's issue. Now, a day before that, and mainly the main reason why Kristen needed help from someone from her team, she tried to fix an issue on Diane's computer. Now, Kristen was struggling with that, and even though she was using her user, still she was unable to fix this problem. And from Diane's perspective, the initial problem that she had was happening because her kid, when she was home, her kid was working or playing on her computer. And while he was playing on his mom's computer, it got infected by a malware which stayed dormant for some time to avoid detection. Now, the situation you see in front of you was created basically a pathway from Diane's machine into Kristen and then to Ben, and then eventually into the database of that organization, where all the client information was stored. Wow. All right. So that's an interesting pathway to go through. Obviously, all of these connections you see around them, these are like people connecting to each other. Now, how can organizations deal with these pathways towards their crown jewels? Now, in theory, I don't think that anyone from you will do that, but you can hire a team of people that will run around their tails and try to find errant credentials and connections from people's computer and they will try to call these people sometimes when they are at home, sometimes when they are in meetings, connect to their computers, reboot the computers, perform other actions in order to remediate that situation. Now, that doesn't sound scalable, right? I mean, this is not something that we can do as organizations today. And if you think about it, how long can something like that take in 200 employees organization, or 5,000 employees organization, or 50,000 employees organization? Now, believe me, I tried that once at one of our customers. I tried to remove one violation, one connection, one credential, and that took us 40 minutes per violation. So try to multiply it in your organization, and you try to understand how many people you need to hire in order to remediate that risk. So this is a great theoretical story, but let's take it to the reality. Now, that exact situation happened at one of our clients. This is an organization that got a huge hit by COVID because they are in the entertainment sector. This customer is specifically based in the US. And before COVID hit, Sally, the CISO, she was concerned about detection of advanced attacks like the one we saw here. She was also concerned about their organization's cyber hygiene, insider threat detection, and she wanted to reduce their attack surface. This is why she approached us in the beginning. During the implementation process, we worked on installing Illusive in their environment, and the first thing we did was to run a risk assessment. And eventually, when we ran the risk assessment, we generated the report. Now, the reports themselves, they revealed some very concerning findings. We saw a lot of interconnections between non-technical employees to technical employees, and then from these computers to crown jewels, privileged accounts, and so on and so forth. It looks similar to what you see in front of you right now. This is a screenshot from our console. And when we double click at the results themselves, the main violator, as I will call him, that was a guy named George. I mean, that was a big surprise for Sally, the CISO, because he was the IT director. And the reason all of these things happen eventually is because he was helping a lot of people and doing all sorts of maintenance from different computers in the organization. Now, that specific use case was around RDP connections. And this is exactly what you can see on the screen right now. You see those interconnection with like a pink color that connects between different computers and different crown jewels in the organization. Now, we reached out to George, the IT director, and we told him, look, there is this situation. We're not sure what's going on, but let us know what you think about it. And then he said, like, no way. I mean, it's impossible that I'm doing something like that. I'm using a secure application for RDP connections, and these credentials, my credentials, are not stored there. This was confirmed many, many times. That's what he was telling us. Now, Sally she knows George for a while, and she didn't want to argue, but she asked George politely to open up his RDP application just to be sure, just to be on the safe side. So he agreed, and then he faced the reality. He like grabbed his head and said, I can't believe that my application was doing that. I mean, this guy, he's a tech savvy. I mean, he understands the risk by these violations. He understands that if his domain admin credentials are spread around the network with RDP session to crown jewels, he understands that attacker can basically reach to a lot of locations, a lot of places in the organization in one click. And then he stopped for a second and he thought about it. Then he grabbed his head again, and he was like, wait a second, does it mean that I need to go to every single computer in my environment and then perform restarts, registry changes, vault cleanup, memory stuff? This is like, he was like super panicked because of that situation. And the situation was like Phil, our PS engineer, he was working with that team, and he was telling him, hold on for a second, no worries. We went back to Sally's desktop, to the dashboard. We logged into the console, and then we cleared those violations from 25 machines in the network. Then we came back to him, and we asked him to open up his RDP application again, and that screen was revealed. I mean, we're able to clear all of his violations in about 3 minutes. That's how long it took to clean up those violations from those computers. Now, his reaction was priceless. I mean, obviously, I mean, he said, this tool can help us a lot in these types of issues. Now, an interesting fact about this client specifically is that they just renewed their license with us because they couldn't live without understanding what is going on in their business. I mean, having these types of violation in the environment is critical. And even though they were suffering a lot, their business was suffering a lot from COVID-19, they were still remain a client of ours, and obviously we're super excited because of that. Now, this use case, the first use case, happened because of a human error. I mean, no harm was done. I mean, nothing happened because they were lucky enough not to be attacked at the same time. And then I want to take you through the second example, the second use case, and that happened during an ongoing incident that we're actually needed to run against the clock here, because eventually the main goal of these attackers was to execute a ransomware attack on that specific organization, and eventually we're able to mitigate that. So this is Stefan. Stefan is the CISO of a large retailer in Europe. Now, Stefan moved recently from another organization and decided to purchase our technology. A few months later, COVID hit, and they couldn't implement our solution. Then, I think it was a Friday morning, we got a call from Stefan. He sounded very nervous, and he said, "We think that we were breached." And at that point, we basically involved all the relevant people from Illusive, and we didn't ask a lot of questions, obviously, and then just engage with them just to understand what's going on in this organization. Now, they suspected that one or more employees tunneled a way for attackers into their organization via the VPN. And the attackers, after that, they were targeting their crown jewels in the environment. Now, as our solution was not installed yet, they asked us to move very, very fast. So in one day, we're able to roll out the solution to their 25,000 computers, and then started basically to wait to something to happen. Now, we were able to detect the attack using our deceptions. That happened a day after the installation was completed. Now, we'll leave the detection for a second for another session, for another day. But the flow that I will present to you now is valid even if other detection solutions will detect something in the environment. So it doesn't matter if you have a detection by an EDR or an antivirus or anomaly detection. The main focus here is how can we identify what was going on in this attack afterwards. So once the detection was made by the deception portion of Illusive, the client, together with us and an incident response company, started to investigate what is going on with this attack. And we realized, once we saw the first alert, we saw that a privileged user got compromised as part of the initial attack. So what we did is we ran a quick risk assessment. Now, the risk assessment itself revealed that this user actually existed on approximately 30 computers in the environment. Aside from those 30 computers, we saw that it involved 6 different domains inside this customer organization. Moreover, we're able to identify the attacker command and control that allowed us eventually to generate IOCs out of them, including their tools that they were running there. They had known tools, and they had first seen tools. They were this attack was super interesting, because of the way that these attackers were working. And also another thing that was super interesting with that, was that it was super quick. I mean, we were able to mitigate this attack in less than 7 days. Okay? And it's not something that you would expect to see when in regular attacks that are happening today. Now we know that this attack was all about encrypting their critical systems, because part of our capabilities in that risk assessment that we did was to launch our forensics on-demand capabilities on the endpoint. So once we have identified that there is a compromised computer in the environment, we also launch the forensics capabilities on each and every computer. These are the red ones that you see around it. That is the user that got compromised. So we could actually see on which computers this user exists. And then when we looked at those computers and their forensics, we're able to find also Ryuk ransomware. And then in general, when you see these types of attacks with these sophisticated attackers, they will not go ahead and do a spray and pray kind of ransomware attack. They will go and move laterally inside the organization until they get into those critical assets, and then they will go ahead and hit the go live for the ransomware, and then encrypt the main servers. Now, if that attack would actually be successful eventually during COVID time, that was around April when COVID hit very much. I would say Europe in general. So that was a big thing for them, and obviously we're able to assist them from avoiding that situation. Now, a little bit about the attack risk assessment. I mean, the thing that we have done for these two customers. So the main goal of that assessment is that you can identify potential compromised users, like we saw with that specific example, connections to crown jewels, categorize them as violations, and then also remediate them. I mean, you can choose even to remediate them from the solution itself. Then you can perform the same action automatically. So let's say that you found RDP sessions like we saw in the first example. You can actually do it over and over and over again. And then you can actually maintain that low attack surface in the environment. Now, with the mitigation capabilities, we can also prevent the attackers from leaving off the LAN, because if you take credentials and connections from the computers themselves, attackers will basically starve, and then they will need to perform other actions. You can also close down pathways to crown jewels, prevent that lateral movement, and then prevent even other spreading like attacks such as ransomware before they become a business crisis. Aside from having their existing controls and following the recent attack, we also recommend our clients to change their mindset a little bit. I mean, we want to be in a mindset of assume breach, right? I mean, attackers are smarter, they're stronger, funded very well, and saying that it won't happen to us is no longer valid. I mean, we want to make sure that we are well prepared for the next major attack that will happen, and more attacks will come in the near future. So eventually, the whole concept of starving the attacker, when it comes to the Illusive product, we really recommend our clients to run that risk assessment every day, and then to reduce the attack surface, so attackers won't have easy access to privileged accounts and crown jewels. In that way, they can starve those attackers and force them to make mistakes. Now, if you think about it for a second, leaving off the LAN is probably the easiest way for attackers to move around the network, because this is the quietest approach out there. I mean, they will not go ahead and run scans in the first steps. They won't use exploits because this is too loud. Now, if they cannot leave off the LAN, they will either wait and then burn a lot of time, or they will use other more loud tools like scanning or malwares, or they will go to the neighbors, which is what we wanted to achieve in the first place, right? So that's the whole concept of the risk assessment, and what we basically want to do with that specific concept of attack surface reduction. In terms of the specific use case that we have, we can automatically create those rules that will identify those privileged users and connections from different OUs inside the networks to critical systems, those crown jewels. That can be Active Directory, cloud assets, financial systems, client information, VIP computers, and then making sure that there are no violations on and toward those critical systems. They can then compare the attack surface, those clients that are using the attack surface manager, they can compare their attack surface state over time. So they can see if something happened in the environment, maybe they purchased another company, they acquire, another company, they want to run risk assessment to understand what is the attack surface state of that specific company before they get them into their system, and so on. Now, these violations can be everything from, as the example I gave you before, the RDP connection to the domain controller. That can be tracking specific users. One of the interesting use cases that before audits, you probably want to go and understand where those privileged users exist. And then those users can actually fail you in an audit. You can find two-factor authentication if it's really enabled to your cloud assets, or even privilege access management tools if they are really protecting you and really changing the user password as you expect them to do. Then all of that can be prioritized as violation and then allow you to mitigate those violations. That means really delete them. I mean, take actions on the computers themselves inside the organization without causing any damage to the business, without blocking any access to your employees with firewalls and so on. Now, as one of our clients is saying, is that I have attack surface manager, so worst case scenario, I will clear those violations in the next cycle. And this is the state of mind that clients that are using attack surface manager, they can really feel comfortable even if they have violations in the environment. So how do we do that? We offer two types of attack risk assessments as part of this initiative. So the one is a cloud-based offer. So basically what happened is that you will put some sort of a connector in your environment, and then we will connect to that environment, and then we'll run the scan on the environment itself, collect the information, and at the end of the assessment, it should take about 4 hours. We can provide you with a report that can give you clear actions on how to mitigate those violations, and will guide you on some manual actions that you can do. So, for example, one of our clients that ran that was we saw a lot of disconnected RDP sessions all over the place. So they didn't want to go with mitigating from Illusive, so they changed their GPO settings, and then that allowed them to mitigate those RDP sessions with stored credentials on them. So you can decide whether you want to take the mitigation portion or not, and then technically we can even clean those violations. So if you want us to show you how that is working, we can definitely do that, but that's not a mandatory thing. Then in some cases, and if you guys agree to that during the assessment itself, we can also gather forensics information from the machine. So for example, God forbid, if we are running this risk assessment during an attack or something similar like that, we can actually help you with getting some more forensics data from those machines that are in the scope. Now, there is also an on-premise option. So for those who don't like the cloud offering, you can definitely go with an on-premise option. It will require some more preparation time, but in general, also something that will be pretty straightforward. And then from our perspective, it doesn't matter who you are or which person you are or which organization you are, either your name is Diane or Ben or Kristen or Stefan, you need to assume breach. I mean, that's the whole concept that we have at Illusive. And the reason we're saying that is because we know that attackers are trying to get everywhere these days. And if they will identify the opportunity, they will take it. I mean, they can breach, whether it will be a supply chain, whether it will be from someone from within, whether it will be phishing. And it doesn't matter if you are a bank or a retailer, healthcare or tech, there is something in the organization that you will probably see as beneficial for them, or they just want to cause some damage. And then today's tools, and then we saw it in the recent attacks that happened, are not enough for these types of attacks. And we discussed about that today. And we want to make sure that if we look at attacks that could happen following the recent attacks that we do, we need to prepare for the worst. And from our perspective, the whole point of attack surface manager, or this whole concept of attack risk assessment, is that we can just do it a little bit easier and faster for you. So from our side, from our perspective, the suggestion is basically schedule this risk assessment to your organization. Now, Jason can post in the chat room also the link to schedule this attack surface. You can see the link at your screen. So basically what you'll need to do is add your details, and then we will contact you and schedule that risk assessment for your organization. Depends on how you want us to do that, whether it will be from remote or on-prem, up to you. You can definitely decide that. That's it. I mean, that's the webinar for today. So hopefully it was it gave you a little bit more information about attack surface in general and the things that can happen in different types of attacks and living off the land, and how we can mitigate those and how we can help you with that mitigation. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jason.
All right, thank you, Nir. We have now some time for questions. Reminder to people that you can ask questions in the Q&A tab on the webinar control panel. I did post the link to the attack risk assessment in the chat, so people can click on that as well if you're interested. We did have a question already coming in, Nir, which was, can we consume this data into our SIM solution?
Yes, absolutely. So as part of this assessment that we're doing, and the fact that we basically know that in some cases people will want to consume this data in their existing tools, you can send either all this data via API to your SIM, or you can export the data and then import that into your SIM solution. And then we can help you with creating the dashboards that you like. So definitely, yes, this is definitely possible.
Okay. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I see something now. There was a question that says, can the tool not only wipe credentials, but also security tokens like Kerberos tickets and other security tokens, etc.?
Yeah, so for now, we are really focusing on the user credentials and the connections that are going from and to different assets in the network. So that's the main focus for Attack Surface Manager for now. But that's definitely a good point, and definitely something that we can consider. So thank you for that comment.
Okay, great, thank you. There's just a question about, do we service potential clients in the United Arab Emirates? I think we can service clients anywhere. But
Yeah.
Nir, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. We can serve all of our clients. We welcome the UAE or anyone else for these types of services. So yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, while we wait, we'll give it one more minute for if there are any other questions. Just a reminder of a couple of things. One is that, like I said earlier, this webinar has been recorded, And so keep an eye out in your email inbox tomorrow, your time, let's say tomorrow morning, your time, for a copy of the recording. I do see another question came in. We'll get to that in a second. And you can also always find out more information in addition to the attack risk assessment link that we posted earlier in the chat. You can check out our website, illusive.com. And you can find all of our other webinar recordings there in our resources page and our blog, etc. So a lot of good, more information is available. Let me look at that last question, which came in. Oh, I'm laughing because we did a previous webinar on this topic. Nir presented it. Nir, does Illusive do proactive threat hunting?
Yeah, I mean, you can use that information, the ASM information that I presented today, during a threat hunting situation, in a threat hunting situation. So if you need to hunt for specific users, specific connections, you can do both together and then combine Illusive in the existing threat hunting activities that you're doing as an organization. So you can definitely use that as additional data points for you in order to hunt for those specific threats that you're looking for. And that can be in various ways. So credentials and connections, obviously, but also, as I mentioned before, with the forensics on-demand capabilities, you can definitely go ahead and look for potential malicious activities that are happening, and then integrate that into your existing data sets that you have, or data systems that can help you eventually with a threat hunting campaign that you're doing.
Okay, great. There's also a question about, is there support for non-Windows as well? They actually asked about if there's non-Windows agents. We're an agentless solution, but Nir, if you want to just take that on non-Windows.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good point, Jason, as well. But in general, the concept of Illusive is to work without an agent. So we don't have a persistent agent on the computers themselves, whether it will be Windows, Linux, or Mac. So that's our mantra, or that's our concept as a company, for a couple of reasons. I mean, Illusive is not just the attack surface manager platform. We're also known for our deceptions. Now, when you are in a situation that you're dealing with sophisticated attackers and you have agents on the computers themselves, you want to be as elusive as possible, right? I mean, you don't want that the attackers will be able to avoid those security solutions. Therefore, we chose not to go with agent-based solution. So the binary itself that we mentioned before will run on those computers and then self-dissolve after it will perform its activities. Now, in terms of Linux and Mac, we can definitely highlight those inside our attack surface manager platform, but mainly we're focusing on Windows in terms of the cleanup of the violations, then allowing you to see all of your critical Linux assets, for example, as part of the overall map of your organization. So that's the most comprehensive answer I can give you. JOM, I think it was.
Great. I don't see, oh, I do see another question that just came in. Does Illusive send alerts to administrators on potential threats detected, and does it actually stop the threat before a verdict is arrived at?
Yeah, so in general, the whole concept of our solution, both from attack surface manager perspective and the deceptions perspective, we choose not to take any proactive approach, but we definitely can alert the administrator about it. Now, that can be either via email, that can be to the SIM. We have customers that integrated their Microsoft Teams or Slack into our incidents. So we don't stop the threat for a few reasons. If we're talking about the deceptions portion of the solution, we don't want that the attacker will feel like they were detected. We want the attacker to feel at home. And then once the organization got the detection from our side, whether it would be a violation that happened in the environment that we detected via attack surface manager, or using our deception technology, we will notify the organization, and then they can decide. They can decide to do multiple actions. Action number one, they can integrate themselves into different EDR solutions, so they can actually isolate the computer from the network. They can then also create like an automation from their SOAR, and create all sorts of automations to isolate this computer from a network using their NAC, for example. But we do not want to take any proactive action to stop the threat, just because the whole concept of the solution. We want to give the detection as early as possible, or to work preemptively, and then prevent those lateral movement options before they become an issue to the organization.
Okay, great. I think that wraps it up. I don't see any more questions. Once again, thank everyone for joining. You can click on that link if you're interested in getting an attack risk assessment. Also check out our website in general, Illusive.com. Thank you very much to our presenter today, Nir Greenberg, our Senior Director of Field Engineering at Illusive. And have a great day, everyone, and stay healthy. And we'll see you at the next webinar.